Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Arts and Ideas. I'm Sue Swinand. And my guest today, Catherine Wilcox-Titus, is not only a remarkable artist and photographer, she's also a very distinguished scholar. And I was very surprised yesterday when I was looking at her website, to realize that she's got dozens of very scholarly research papers and publications on a wide range of contemporary issues. I shouldn't have been surprised because I knew she had a master's in art history from Boston University and also a PhD from BU in 2005. So, Catherine, I'm proud to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I thought maybe we'd start by asking if you had a special area of interest with your research.
Well, right now I'm very interested in contemporary art and video art. I really enjoy what the contemporary artists are doing with the moving image. It's such a totally immersive technology when an artist uses video. You'll walk into a gallery room and they'll have multiple screens going all at once. And I think it's really a very exciting move and direction in contemporary art. It has its problems in terms of letting other people know what's happening, because for copyright issues, of course, they don't want to make the whole video available on the web. Part of it is an experiential encounter. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to be there and immersed in this environment. Yes. Unlike, paintings and drawings, we Google it and okay, they're JPEGs, but we can get a sense of what they're about. Video is different.
I never thought of that, yeah.
And so it's very hard for me to teach it. It's real, you have to be there.
Because you don't have the resources to access the actual
Right. You have to experience it.
So you're basically interested in photography research and what's happening in the contemporary realm right now.
Yep.
Very good. And so you are also teaching, and tell us a little bit about your teaching.
I teach at Worcester State University, and I teach mostly art history. Sometimes I supervise the thesis students. I did that for 2 years. And sometimes I do some studio work as well. But mostly it's art history, and I try to present contemporary art to our majors because they have to know something about, especially contemporary.
It's not easy to come by if you don't have someone pointing you,
right.
I think.
Yeah, that's the challenge of contemporary art.
And you have another obligation at Worcester State University.
Yes, and I direct the gallery, which I love doing because then I get to talk to artists face-to-face and see their work in person.
How long have you been doing the gallery there?
We've been doing that 10 years. We're going into our 11th year.
You have been managing the gallery for 10 years?
Yep. I love it. Yeah. It's a highlight of my
I've enjoyed
work.
Many of the shows.
Yes. And of course we show our graduating seniors every year, and we have faculty shows, but part of our mission is really to serve a broader audience in the community and provide another venue for area
artists. But I also think that's
artists.
A wonderful exposure for your students.
Oh, it's wonderful.
To have that come to them.
Yes, right on campus, and they can talk to the artists in person. And sometimes those informal conversations are something really important. And we try to set up ways to facilitate that.
But in addition to all of that, which she's doing professionally, she's also a very active artist who exhibits very frequently and has received numerous prizes. And you have a show on right now at Arts Worcester. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, this is a show that is 3 artists. It's called Modes of Inquiry, and we all have sort of this common interest in science and art, and not really accepting that there's a really firm line between the two. So when I do my photography, the works that I have in there, they are presented in such a way with a black surround, so I I really like the association of microscopes and telescopes and so on.
Let's
and there's
look
two
at
of
the
theirs.
first image so they know what you're talking about. What,
Okay.
now this is from what series?
This is from Primal Waters, and this is where I am going around to the area swamps and ponds. I find these areas fascinating from a scientific point of view because, of course, we know that a lot of life began in these cooking pots. So Massachusetts is full of these swamps and ponds, and so you just drive down any road and you'll very quickly see them. And there's a lot still within the city. So these are pretty accessible, most of them. I stop the car, I walk out with my camera and my tripod, and I look for pictures, and I look for something that's visually interesting. So a lot of the works in this show in Primal Waters are ice. I'm fascinated by water in general, but ice in particular because it's this wonderful changed state of H2O that gives rise visually to these incredible patterns and textures.
And it can also have so many different faces. It can be slick or rough or broken or angular or curved. You know, it's just amazing the way ice, and then the melt takes in different shapes.
Yes, and the freeze-thaw cycles. I mean, you know, there is a whole culture that goes out on the ice. I'm not brave enough to do that. I stick to the shore, and it is along the shoreline where you see these freeze-thaw cycles give these incredible patterns.
Well, you don't have to go out on the ice. Somebody great said, Walt Whitman, I opened my mouth where I happened to be standing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
Yeah, that's a great quote.
But anyway, so this one has such a softness about it, you know, even though it's cragging forms of ice. I guess that's the snow on it.
Yes, and you know, this is another fascination of mine, is how the camera always sees differently than natural vision. It will exaggerate certain qualities, minimize others. Sometimes I don't want what it's doing, and sometimes it gives me unexpected results that point me in a certain direction, and I want to pursue that. There is a softness to this very granular ice, and there's this nice contradiction between, you know, feeling like you could lie down in it and it would be very soft, and it's actually ice, and it has a nice curve to it.
When I first looked at it, it reminded me of swan feathers and the beautiful soft movement of them. But it's also like something on another planet. It's a landscapey feel, but not quite familiar.
Right, and that's what I mean about the camera seeing differently.
Okay, and here's another one, and this one, oh, what a different feel then.
Yes, and this one is unusual in that you're a little bit further back, and you can very readily see what you're looking at.
Foreground.
Yeah.
Framing.
Yeah, right. And this is, you know, you frequently find this in bodies of water, these small bodies of water, great uprooted trees, because the water will come in, and it'll come in a flood, and it'll uproot these trees, and you see a part of the tree that normally you don't see. You see this root pattern, you see below the ground, and the ground has shifted in a very interesting way. So I really tried to minimize the color here. And
are these color photographs?
Yes, they start out as color.
Isn't that interesting? You know, you sort of think they're black and white, but the ice is so almost colorless, just taking in very subtle tones from the sky
and from anything surrounding it. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
You can't see much color in this one at all. One thing I do notice, though, that's very striking is the use of the telescopic focus, which makes it look like something from history.
Or something from science, or, you know, it is a vignette.
Yes.
And a vignette has this historic association with sort of softening the edges and letting the image sort of bleed into the page. This is a stronger vignette in that it has this completely black surround. So I like that porthole, microscope, telescope kind of effect. And of course it does help concentrate the gaze.
Sure. It also, it makes it look like you're being privileged to see this little thing. Yeah. It reminds me a bit of the Civil War, something historic about those tones and the framing in the circle.
Right. And this too is another one that is gets you from a distance. And again,
Oh, how gorgeous is that?
and you know, we have these wonderful atmospheric effects in the winter where sometimes with the warmth and then the cool, we get mists coming across and there's a little bit of ice still on the water. And I exaggerated the sort of geometric lines that
The zigzag of
Yes.
yeah, I like that.
the cracking of the ice. I mean, if you go out and you go along the shore when it's conditions of ice, it's a noisy place. You'll hear a lot of cracking and
It's a little bit scary if
shifting.
you're on the ice.
Oh yeah, that's why I steer clear of going on the
This
ice.
one has like a dreamlike quality, or a sort of, I don't know, just something from the Romantic period
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, that's what vignettes do. And this again is another ice formation. This past winter, we had some very unusual effects with very warm and then going to a deep freeze. And this is when the ice sheets will come up and they'll crush against other ice sheets and go into a very sort of 45-degree angle.
This is when the monsters come out of the water and show their teeth.
Yeah, well, I when I was trying to keep track of what they were called, I called this one Teeth. Because
It reminds me
it
of
does
some
look like
kind of
that.
a sea monster
Yeah.
opening his jaw.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. And look at how different the feeling of these forms is. You know, they're so hard and jagged, and black and white makes it more aggressive than all that soft tone.
Right, and I do try to keep various patterns of bands that can be read on a single plane, so that I have a band of the shore in the background, a band of open water, and then a band of ice.
That really adds a lot of distance into the, when you look across the surface of the water.
Right.
I know you have some where you're looking straight down.
Yeah. This is several here from the series that I did called Audubon's Workbench, where I did some research into Audubon's working methods and what he was all about. And he comes across as a person very much caught in the 19th century attitude towards the natural world. He's fascinated by it. He finds it beautiful.
Oh, he loved it. He
loved
loved it, but he destroyed it at the same time.
He destroyed it, he exploited it, he
Yeah.
killed way more specimens than he
But he
needed.
really did love it.
Yes,
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
He did. And I was fascinated by the fact that even though he goes to great pains in the visual collection of the birds of America to make it seem like these birds are alive, they're all dead birds he's using, and he's
Which
pinning
he
them.
put a little stick to prop
Yes.
their wing and a
Pins,
little wire.
pins and wires and so on. And so that's what I was working with here. I'd take these bird skins and arrange them with pins and wires. And of course,
What is the background on that?
this is interesting. It's actually, when you're working with skins, you have to use a lot of salt. And so this is a lot of salt. And I really like the effect. It looked
I
very
love that.
constellation-like.
To me, it looks like a constellation.
Yeah.
And it looks like some great mythical Icarus or
Yeah.
something, you know, going through the night sky.
Yes,
Wow.
that's what and these things just happen by accident. When you start arranging things to get a still life, one thing
You
suggests
don't know
another.
what's going to come. And
You don't know where it's
and
gonna
that's
go.
when the best part happens.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. You know,
I love that one.
As an artist, you know how that goes. And this one was again a stuffed bird that I arranged with pins and wires to look like it's coming through some kind of landscape. And of course, it's not. And that's why I was thinking of Audubon's Workbench.
There's almost like a humor to this one, that
Yes.
where you're like pushing a real strong pun on, I am so natural. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's what struck me when I saw Audubon's prints, is that there's something wrong with these birds.
They have a natural pose, but they look so weird.
Because there's no flex muscles under
Yeah.
the feathers, and you can
Yeah.
really tell that. But once you
With
start
the
looking,
shadow, with the fence behind them, everything, and even you can see the visible wires in this
yes,
one.
and I do want to once in a while.
So
I
you're
do
really
make it, yes.
playing fun on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and making
Okay.
it clear that it's all artificial. And this is part of the Still Life series, where I you know, this actually was a happy accident as well, a cat's skeleton in some plexiglass. And I just put it in the light in my dining room, and it just started reflecting all of these wonderful lights, and you get the shadow of the box behind it.
It's so mysterious. I love the grid of the window pane behind it, but also the way it looks like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But he's also encapsulated in that, so he's just bursting, ready to burst out of that glass box.
It looks like there's still some energy here, especially with that floating.
He's ready to spring almost.
Yeah, with that floating line of light behind him, coming from his skull. He's ready to pounce.
Wow. Now, where did you work with these specimens?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a wildlife rescue associated with Tufts, and they allowed me to come in, and sadly they have a freezer full of birds that they had to euthanize in most cases because people bring them injured birds. Sometimes they can rehabilitate them and cure them and heal them, and that's wonderful, but sometimes they're too far gone.
Yeah, I know about the program. They return a lot of different animals to the wild.
Yeah, they have a wonderful program. And this, again, is part of the still life that grew out of Audubon's workbench.
That's just formally beautiful again. You have a really nice sense of design, and I don't know how much you think about.
I do. You know, when you're doing a still life, as an artist, you just have to move things around until you say, oh, that's it. It's catching the light right here, and it's got some nice shadows. And
even the little reflection, you can tell it's a color photograph. Look at the blue sky on the bubble.
Yeah, yeah. And this is just an ornament that I found in the gift shop
glass ball
at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And
did you put the feathers in it?
No, it was like that. It came like that.
I thought you stuffed the feathers in
No, I wished I'd been that
Look at the little rainbows in the light prism projections.
But for photography, you know, it's all about light, and it's all about detail and reflection. You know, I try to use natural light as much as possible.
Look at the beauty of that striking horizontal line that cuts right across the table plane. Beautiful.
Yeah, this is just my kitchen counter. Beautiful. You know, like I say, it's a chess game. You move things around, and then something
Even this
clicks.
looks almost like a bird tail, that projection of the shadow.
Yeah. And this was at this wing. This is an owl wing, a fascinating thing. But it was on display at a sanctuary in California. They had a raptor sanctuary. And it was just there for people to pick up and look at, because the owl wing has special construction so that it's very, very silent. If you've ever been around an owl or had one fly by, you don't know about it until you see it having passed you, because it's so quiet. So it was just a wonderful opportunity to take a picture of something
almost looks like a whole bird, you know, and it's a flight shape.
Exactly.
Like the Nike sneaker kind of idea.
Exactly.
A flight shape, which makes sense. It's a wing.
It's a wing, yeah.
What we associate with movement and flight.
But we're all fascinated by these raptors because they have millions of years of evolution on us. We are way behind in that way.
Whoa.
And this is the still life of actually I called it Grasshopper Narcissus, and I found out it's actually not a grasshopper, but I'm going to keep calling it a grasshopper.
What is it, a katydid or
I think it's a katydid.
Yeah.
And it was in my yard, and found it and brought it in, and I, again, just started playing with it and seeing what it would do, and I had this old mirror hanging
Almost
around.
looks like water, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it had died in that position where it looked like it was kneeling, and so I thought, yeah, that's a Narcissus. He's just looking at his reflection, fascinated fatally by his own reflection.
You know, and think about her formal choices here. I was noticing the paper under the mirror and the grid that's on it, which is just so very surprising, but I like it. It's just unexpected. I love something that gives you a little bit of a surprise, a little bit of a wake-up call, and noticing things like that I like a lot. And the mirror is cool too.
Yeah, it's old-fashioned accounting ledger paper, so I like the metaphorical resonance of accounting. You know,
Yes.
we're always trying to account for
Yes.
the natural world. I did a series of storefronts, and this one was in an Army and Navy store, and actually was a little bit inside the, mostly it's storefronts right on the sidewalk, but this one was inside, and I couldn't resist because these mannequin heads are all arrayed in front of a huge panel of medals in the background.
Army
Army
medals.
Yeah.
Wow, what
And,
a strange juxtaposition.
It is a very strange juxtaposition.
But you know, it's by unusual and unexpected juxtapositions that we make meaning.
Yes,
And that we
exactly.
find significance. And why is that in front of that? And why did she choose that? And,
Right.
But I was struck by the sameness of their faces.
Yeah.
Every single face is the same.
Yes,
And
just at a little bit
blank,
different angle.
yeah. Just the heads are turned a little bit, but you can see how they would put a red wig on one and a blue wig on another. And
Yeah.
But we're all mannequins.
Right, and a military cap, and then you're in business. But I was struck by their android-like
Yes.
presence.
Yes.
In the
Android
face.
is the word.
And
Good.
then there's the streak of light that comes in that's rather violent, like a rocket flare.
Yeah.
And then the military context is
Yeah.
really interesting. I leave the interpretation open-ended. I like to.
That's good.
Of course.
Well,
leave it
if
open.
there are so many possibilities,
Yes.
that really enriches it.
And as an artist, we don't like to limit the interpretations. And this was a storefront in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, where there was a mirror in the window, and it was catching the reflection in just this really, really interesting way. So it has
And
this
there's
layers.
you didn't paste anything in
No,
on these
no,
or
this is not
layer another
Photoshop.
image or anything like that.
No.
This is one image that she took from reality.
Yeah.
And it's so beyond reality. in a
Right,
sense.
right.
I just love the way there are like 5 different layers of reality there,
Yeah.
but they all are contained within the structure of the.
Right. It was really a wonderful, I wasn't even out looking for pictures, but of course I had my camera, and I said, oh, we got to stop. We were on our way somewhere else, and I said, we got to stop for this one because there's just a wonderful set of realities and layers
It
that
definitely
you
looks
say.
like you're looking out a window, but it also has the idea of the plein air painters
Yeah.
who framed so
Yes.
that you were looking through their frame into another reality.
That's exactly what I like. I like that old frame, framing the landscape.
But the clouds and the drapes are fabulous.
And you
Yeah.
bring all that out when you're working with the photograph afterwards. And this is a Seattle nail salon. I just like the interaction of the lights, the interior lights above the hand, and with these absolutely outrageous nails, artificial nails on them, as if it's reaching up to the lights. And again, just walking around on the streets, just looking for
How could you
opportunities.
operate with hands like that? I don't know.
I don't know.
The hand is so delicate and elegant, and then those nails are just so vicious.
They're
looking.
like talons. They're
Wow.
really like
Well,
talons.
I guess that's the point.
Yeah. God bless them if they can.
It's our culture,
handle
though, isn't
that.
it? It's our culture.
Yes, it is our culture.
Although the Chinese had it too.
Oh, of
They had
course.
the
Oh my
long-
gosh, yes. No, and there's many universals about the very
I think
peculiar
it was
habits
partly
of people.
to show that you'd never worked.
Yes, I think so. Yes. This is a storefront in Lewiston, Maine.
So is that a doll?
It's a mannequin. It's not a doll.
I did, it's
And
so
she was
lifelike.
part of a bridal party that was in a bridal
The mannequin
shop.
is terrific. It looks like a sculpture. It's so lifelike.
Well, and she looks lifelike, very lifelike, but she also looks like an automaton with the gestures, with the hands.
The gestures.
Yes.
What made it look like a real person making a gesture to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But you know what? I noticed the movement. I thought maybe it was a bracelet, but you can see the joint on the mannequin at the wrist.
Exactly. Yeah, she's gesturing in some very
but it's so
broad,
lovely.
kabuki kind of
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But I see these storefronts very much as very theatrical.
So that was a bridal shop?
Yeah, bridal shop.
Wow, flower girl.
Yeah, flower automaton. And this was one of our passing technologies and entertainments. Is this old outside theater drive-in, one of the few remaining. It's a mess now.
There
It's
are
all
quite
gone.
a few around in the area.
Yeah, but this one's been kind of turned into a paintball place,
I
unfortunately.
love the darkness of the sky and the tonality of it, and then the blankness and it's like a world abandoned.
It is like a world abandoned, and I went back many times to get just the right atmospherics and weather conditions with that very unusual sky and the clouds lighting up. But all these weeds growing up in between the stanchions where they used to have the microphones, and the projector room is still there. It was this wonderful old stone house.
It's really cool.
It is. I really, this was one of my earliest shots that I made with a 4x5 camera that I
And
lugged
that's what
around.
you use mostly, isn't it?
No, right now I'm using mostly digital.
Okay.
But this was a 4x5.
I see.
Yeah. And these were just a set of buildings that were in the process of being moved in
You have 2 minutes.
in Washington, D.C. And these blank, empty walls were just fascinating, I think.
Looks like something from the Soviet bloc.
Yeah, right. And I have a series of white houses. I've gone around the area of Worcester County to look at these white houses, and usually they're old, and usually they're on their way out and decaying.
I like the simplicity of the frontal view.
This
with
is actually
parallel-
a barn.
parallel perspective, yeah.
But, you know, these were all over New England, as you know. There are many opportunities. And this is not quite white, but it's an old, some kind of
Did you say
fruit
that was
stand.
in Shrewsbury?
Yep.
See
Yeah.
that? We're kind of rural out here.
Yeah, no, this is in Shrewsbury too.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that was one of my last still life pictures, weighing and measuring. This bird I put it in this weigh scale. It's a Japanese weigh scale, actually. And again, I just
Was
wanted...
that from the Audubon series?
Yeah, Audubon
Okay.
series. I'm sorry, it's a little out of order. But it was just a fascinating...
We got to, okay, is there one more?
Yep.
Let's go to the last.
Okay, should I go?
Oh, so we have a couple more images of the swamps.
Yeah.
Now, before we end, I need to ask you about your website. You can see a lot more of Catherine's work on her website. It's really quite nice. And also, what is the website?
Catherine Wilcox-Titus Photography.com.
And I know you have a show coming up too, besides the show at Arts Worcester now.
I have a show coming up at the Griffin Museum of Photography in Winchester, Mass., and it opens June 14th.
Winchester, Mass?
Winchester, Mass., yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Is that a one-person show?
Yes, it is.
Congratulations. Hey, thanks so much for coming in and showing us your work. And I'm sorry we're out of time, but I really enjoyed looking at your images and hearing your commentary.
Thank you, Sue. I really
Okay.
appreciate your work.
And thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you again next time for another edition of Arts and Ideas.